Welcome to the Rampant Discourse YouTube channel. I'm your host, Paul Lesson.
I'm Andrew Riley.
I'm Travis Hudson.
And before Travis tells us what we're doing this evening, it's a surprise. I want to address the fact that it's a little darker around here than usual, and I might be talking a little quieter than usual. And that is because most evenings that we record this, I've got the child care taken care of. But as of tonight, and possibly for the next couple nights, there's a baby over there, and she's sleeping, and I don't want to wake her up. So that's why the lights are a little darker. I'll be talking a little more quietly. And if I just happen to disappear for a couple seconds and come back with a baby, don't freak out. So Travis, why don't you tell the audience what we're doing tonight?
I feel like I should turn out my lights and make this all more intimate. But
Mood lighting.
that would make sense for wine, not so much for beer, which is what we have.
I was
there
told.
is a wine at,
Yeah, I was told there was a
a-
wine advent calendar, so I was gonna.
Yeah, there is a wine advent calendar.
Maybe
I am
next year.
curious. I am curious. These are 16-ounce cans. You can't possibly get 16 ounces of wine.
That'd be a lot of wine.
We talk about high ABV for beer. Wine is topping beer. So we're up to 19.
No insane.
We're down to 6. Shoot, I know all those 12 days of Christmas. 6.
No,
Lord sleeping?
No,
that's
whatever.
that's either 12 or
It's
10
one of the-
anyway.
Yeah,
6 is swans
I think
swimming.
it's 7 swans a swimming, 6 geese a laying. Right?
Okay, then.
That sounds
Either
reasonable.
way, that's after Christmas. We're still before Christmas.
You learn something every day.
12 days of Christmas are.
The 25th of December
Through-
through the 6th of January.
So what's special about the 6th of January?
It's Epiphany. I feel like I've had this
Oh.
conversation with you guys earlier in this, but I mean, it's been a while since you might have forgotten.
I don't think we've done it on video. We've probably done it on audio.
Don't knock over your
alright.
calendar.
So yeah, because there's obviously less cans in it now. the
It's a
whole
little bit
thing
lighter.
Shakes a lot more whenever you take stuff out. So yeah, this one looked really cool when I put it in the fridge. The Rauchbier, German craft beer. And it just says product of Germany.
All right, so let me tell you guys a little bit about what we're drinking tonight. This is the Zwonitzer Rauchbier, which is it's brewed by the Brauerei Gasthaus Zwonitz, which is basically a hostel in the town of Zwonitz, but many of these places have their own brewing, so it's a very small brewery. They've only been in business since 1990. There's a Stein. Nice. They've only been in business since 1997. It's only at 4.8% ABV, which is pretty low. But the thing that we're going to notice right away is that this is a very dark beer because this is a smoked beer. Early on, Travis had mentioned something about smoked beers, and I didn't have a whole lot of familiarity with them. So I think this might be my first actual taste of a smoked beer myself. A smoked beer, as I pulled up some research a couple days later, is a beer where the malted grain has been essentially burnt. They malted it to the point that it is toasted, and that imparts a smokiness to the flavor. The quick reviews and the information from their website says that this is a fairly low intensity smoked beer, that you're going to smell the smokiness more than you're going to taste it, so it's more on the nose, less on the tongue. Zwonitz is in the German state of Saxony, and the town is located south of Leipzig and southwest of Dresden, but very near the border with the Czech Republic. So we're going to drink a fairly interesting beer from the edges of Germany, as you will. So I'm going to go ahead and pour mine while you guys start to digest all of that.
So what does Rauch mean? Does that mean smoke beers basically or something?
I didn't look that up, and my Rausch sounds familiar as a word, but I can't place it. I have to pull my dictionary up. It's not one that I use frequently.
So there's a long-lasting head on mine, and I gotta say, first impressions, I'm super intrigued. I was not expecting that color of a beer, and the smell is really intriguing, and the look is really intriguing, and I can't wait to taste it. But as of right now, as you can see, there's still a ton of head. Holy crap!
Yeah. It's a very heady beer, especially if you give it a straight pour.
Yeah.
Even my very, very soft pour, you can't really make that out, but it's still got a good bit of head on there, so I'm not at all surprised. It feels more like the Guinness Stout kind of head, where they intentionally activate all their things with the dongles or off the tap.
And Rauch does mean smoke.
That's
So if I'd known that, I might have not. I don't know if you guys saw my reaction when I poured. I was like, "Oh, this is a dark beer." I wasn't expecting it dark just based on most of the beers in its calendar.
Just smelling it, it's a very weak smoke smell, but it is there. Reminds me a bit of like going to the fairgrounds and you have some campfires there, and there's just a little bit of smoke in the air in the evenings, maybe just that little level. It's not super heavy.
Yeah, it's kind of like standing around a campfire, kind of
Standing in a campfire.
around a camp.
Wait, man.
Around.
I guess you're a witch. No, wait. Do witches can survive the fire, or that's how you kill a witch?
They weigh the same as a duck.
Mm, right. They don't they float?
That's why they weigh her as a duck, because ducks
Mm.
float.
Okay. I don't think I've ever had a smoked beer before because this is not a flavor I'm familiar with in terms, at least from a beer.
Yeah, I don't think I've had smoked. I've had smoky, peaty scotch and whiskey, but I've never had a smoked beer.
Yeah. So this, if you've had a smoked smoky scotch, a peaty scotch, this is going to have some similarities with it. I had my first taste of Lagavulin about a week ago, and there's some reminiscences here. Whereas the Lagavulin was much stronger, both in terms of alcohol content and also the smokiness of the flavor, I can see a relationship. Despite the fact that they say it's more on the nose and less on the tongue, I'd say it's about equal from my perspective. You can smell it and you can taste it. So, if you're not interested, if you're not a Scotch fan, this beer may not be something that you're going to enjoy. I happen to be a Scotch fan, but not always the smokiest ones. So, this is definitely one of the more unique beers we've had in the calendar. So, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, my wife is a big scotch fan, but not a smoky scotch fan. Otherwise, I might, I might run off camera and see if she wanted a sip of this one. But since I know she's not, I'm a bigger fan of the smoky scotch than she is. But so now it makes sense. Sorry, now it makes sense why I was looking at the can again. It makes sense that the can is like looks like wood.
Got the wood grain going, sure.
Now it makes more sense.
I was just gonna say this is a good opportunity to maybe give it. Oh, uh-oh. I don't know if you hear that or not.
Yeah. That's
All right, I'll be right back. You guys enjoy.
You
your
take care
beer.
of business.
We do what we have to.
We knew going into this that it was going to be a challenge. Recording 24 beer tastings across an entire month is a challenge for anyone, especially for three guys who work and have families and other responsibilities. We each of us have our kids to take care of. Paul's got the youngest one there, and I'm very fortunate that mine are older, and except in rare cases, are not interrupting this kind of situation. So this is the challenge, and we do it because we think it's worthwhile and fun. But that doesn't mean that for all of our efforts to try to make it professional, we don't have these moments. And not at all saying that Paul is not professional here. We all know you got to take care of the family first.
It's also tends to be a busier time of year. Although I think my summer and fall was probably busier just because since my son did baseball, multiple practices, games on the weekends. And spring is going to be even more because it's like practices and games during the week. So it's going to be even harder to do. It might be even harder to do this in the spring.
There is no good time to take 24 days off in the evenings.
Well, speaking of taking 24 days off, like, man, I don't know how people save that much leave at my work. So there are people that were gone from work like after the first week of December. They just take off all the way to New Year's. And like at least one of them has kids. So I'm like, either he has really nice parents who can take care of the sick children, or his wife can stay home and take care of them more. Because I think they only have one kid. Once you get to two, it becomes a little bit harder because you don't want to keep the other one home just because the other one can't go out or anything. So then you can't just. Then you have to tag team parents.
Well, that may be an interesting conversation. Just the requirements that we have for parenting, being residents of the United States, without a lot of the options that other countries have in terms of support for family structures. Historically, the work of child rearing was the work of the woman of the house, the mother, the wife. We have, as a culture, pushed more and more of that to external sources, childcare, schools, and while the women still pick up the majority of it inside the household, they have more support in a lot of other countries, and those supports are often funded by the government in other countries. In America, people are sometimes shocked by how little support families get. That's something that the more we try to change it, the more people fight it because it's very, very expensive. Very expensive.
Well, and then also like just thinking from what I always hear, other countries like have insane amounts of maternity leave and paternity leave. Like you're lucky to like my company just got paternity leave like 2 years ago. I'm like, yeah, thanks guys. Where were you several years ago, right? But I mean, I'm glad that they have it now. But don't like some countries have like upwards of a year of maternity leave?
Baby. Hello, baby.
Hello.
Hello. We're talking about
Paternity
babies, maternity leave, paternity leave. Although I think, and you were talking about how it's more common, I guess, in other countries.
Well, you get more of it, and it's more subsidized by the government, so the companies are
Right.
not on the hook for it as much, or at least they, they say you have to have it, and therefore it's just part of the competitive situation of that country anyway, so it's all on the level playing ground. In the United States, no company seems to want to do it first because that's a competitive disadvantage to be the leader in that, and so there's efforts to try and have it, forced through by government, require it, but then they want, subsidies for it, and it gets to be very, very complicated, and we have ultimately, as a result, very little of a social safety net for that kind of thing. So,
right. And I was going to say, and it's one of those things where, and I'm sure there are just as many people in other countries that don't want to have kids, but it seems like to me an American thing, the whole like there are couples that specifically don't want to have kids, and then they might have some of them, not all of them, but some of them might have the opinion of like, I don't want my tax money to go subsidizing all these people that are going to have kids because what am I, it's the classical like I want my tax money to go to what I want, not what everybody else wants kind of thing. So it becomes a hard sell. Like, I mean, the other way around. Like if your kids are already growing, you're like, well, gee, I'm not getting anything out of maternity leave and paternity leave now either. So it's hard to build the momentum for something like that because so many people will already be out of it. They're not thinking about, yeah, gee, it would have been nice to have that. Let's pay it forward kind of thing.
Somebody always has to be willing to take the hit and say that wasn't available for me, but I want it to be available for someone else, or to have the solidarity. I've been paying very close attention to a number of the strikes that have been going on recently. Strikes don't tend to get a lot of attention unless they're really, really big. So you guys may not be aware that the John Deere employees are striking, which is causing some very interesting parts issues. That the Kellogg's factory workers are striking in at least one factory, and those strikes are having impacts. But the reason that a lot of these strikes are happening, which is surprising and new, is that the companies, John Deere and Kellogg in particular, have been trying to split their workforce and say, okay, you workers who've been here for this period of time, you're grandfathered into this program, and workers who've been here for a little bit longer, or a little bit less time, you get a lesser tier of benefits, but you still get some benefits. And then anyone that we hire after this point, because we need to cut these benefits off, won't get any of those. And so you have this three-tiered system, and it keeps the workers sort of from being able to work together and say, hey, I need those benefits that you're getting because they've been negotiated out, and there isn't a whole group of them willing to step forward. And what it has taken in both of those strikes is that the most senior workers are saying, you know what, screw this, screw the company. We're striking on behalf of our other workers because we see what's happening, that if we're the last generation of workers to get these benefits, then it's all going to fall apart, and we need to protect them. So they're moving forward even when it doesn't help them. They're striking even when they don't gain the benefits from it.
I just missed getting a pension at my company by 1 year. If I'd been hired, I think 1 year earlier, I would have qualified for the pension. I assume that's probably one of the style of benefits you're talking about, because those are obviously fading out as everybody goes to individual retirement plans.
Pensions are pretty rare these days. A company that I worked for had the pensions, so I have something there because I'm vested in it. But nowhere else I'm going to go now is likely to have one. It's extremely rare.
They're expensive.
They're very expensive.
Yeah. and so I actually two follow-up questions for that would be one, what happens if the business that was holding your pension goes out of business?
Depends on how they have it invested. The pension is supposed to be fully funded, but in a lot of cases it's not. So most pensions are insured through the federal government. They have a program called the Pension Guarantee, something or other, and so they'll manage the payout for anyone who is receiving a pension or due to receive a pension from it, and try to make it equitable if it's not fully paid out. And if it is fully paid out, then it's pretty straightforward. But ultimately, the government oversees that as well for those companies that have the pensions. And this another reason why they want to get out of the pension business is that one less thing for the government to interfere with, and frankly, no business likes the government interfering.
So my other follow-up question was, can you only strike if you're a member of a union?
Strictly speaking, yes. If you're not part of the union and you strike anyway, it's called a wildcat strike, and that is technically illegal, but people do it anyway.
Because I was just wondering, like, yeah, I never heard about anybody striking, and there are some union people where I work in one part of the building, and then the rest of us aren't. And I never heard like any of the people that I work with talking about striking about the pension thing.
A wildcat strike is illegal. Like what? So if you just stop working, like,
well, you
why can't the company
individually
just fire you.
Well, they would probably.
Okay. But I guess where does the law get involved there? Like, why would
That's a really
they can't make
complicated
you come
question.
back to work?
No, they cannot make you come back to work. Maybe calling it illegal is perhaps inaccurate,
Well,
but that's
does
the
it give the
terminology that's
company-
been used for something I've been reading. I'll follow up on that one. That's a good question for tomorrow, perhaps.
Is it maybe not illegal, but it gives the company an out to fire you for that reason? Because usually a company has to have some reason to fire you, right? Even if that is just we don't have the money.
So companies can fire you for a lot of different reasons depending on the state that you're in, right? Employment law in each state is going to be different. In Virginia, it's an at-will state, which means that the company can fire you at any time for essentially any reason as long as it's non-discriminatory. If you have a protected class of things and you think you've been fired for that reason, you can sue them, but they can still fire you. If they don't want you working for them anymore, they're going to get rid of you. It just may cost them a lot of money, right?
Yeah, I guess that's the not catch-22, but like, yeah, a company might be like, you're just a bad worker, but then if you're in a minority class, it's going to be harder. They have to probably go prove their case a little bit more just to avoid that legal battle.
Or go into the legal battle and try and out-lawyer you, which they're likely to be able to do. But even then, most of the time, most companies will want to settle. I've unfortunately had to let a couple of employees go, and one of them happened to be a more elderly person. And it was like, okay, yeah, this is not working out, but we don't want any chance of a lawsuit, so we're definitely settling with you right now. We're going to give you more of a buyout than you are at all worth, and just to smooth the whole thing over.
Well, and I understand like that. I guess it was probably they thought it was gonna fall under ageism or something.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, if a company is in dire straits, it actually, I don't know. In a way, it makes sense to, on one hand, it makes sense to let go of a more senior person because they cost you more. Obviously, they, in theory, bring more value to your company. So you might be better off firing two younger people that equal the salary of that older person, which is obviously what the older person says you should do, probably.
Everyone is always looking out for themselves first and foremost, right? So, but these things end up being incredibly complicated. It does depend on the person, the productivity scales of it, and I have found most companies are fairly reasonable. Obviously, there are some bad actors too, so I can't say that this is always the case, but the legal system and the framework for employment law we have is stacked enough in the employer's favor that they don't have to try very hard to get what they want most of the time, right? If you do something that you're not supposed to be doing, they'll warn you, and if you do it again, they'll get rid of you, and they're fine because they have that documented trail and they're good to go. If they just want to get rid of you, they'll get rid of you, and it's a little bit harder, but same kind of thing, right? So I don't think it's there in any real hardship there. But to the striking thing, unions are way down. There are many fewer unions now than there were 20 or 30 years ago, in part because the unions themselves got corrupt, right? Who wants to be paying union dues to people that are posting political positions that you don't agree with and doing things with that money that you don't want them to be doing and not providing you any real benefit. They can't negotiate successfully. And then it turns out that at the end, we may be going back that way where unions become even more of a necessity now than they were in the middle time. So maybe they come back around.
Yeah, I know video game developers are always talking about they should unionize to help eliminate crunch time.
I'm not sure if this is as relevant now, but there was a point in the conversation where there was but this was relevant. There was a really interesting court case that I read about a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, where there was a white executive for a company. I don't remember the name of the company. I wish I did. And he got fired or laid off. I'm not sure exactly the terminology. And he thought it was because of his race. And he sued. And I think most people would normally say it's a pretty uphill battle for a couple of reasons, but he ended up winning.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of interesting curveballs involved. Like apparently he was in charge of their diversity initiative, which was all about like kind of, one would think, replacing certain white workers with minority workers, and it was a very interesting story. And I don't really want to go much further because I don't want to misrepresent any of the facts, but there was a lot of twists and turns in terms of upending my expectations when reading the story. And if I can find it, I'll put it in the description notes. Maybe I haven't been doing a good job of that. Maybe I should start doing a better job of putting links to things that I'm right about in the show notes.
Well, while you were briefly away there, we were talking about just, we're three guys with families, quite obviously, and other responsibilities. So taking a month out of our days and our nights to record this, it's a challenging undertaking. So it's kind of amazing that we haven't had more glitches and hiccups than we have. Although obviously we've had our fair share. We have a lost episode. My audio quality on a couple of those episodes has been really bad. Sorry about that. So things like this, they have to be expected. And hey, if you like what you've got, then we can work on getting it to be better, because the more we do this, the better we're going to get at it for sure.
Hopefully.
Now's when Paul asks you to massage the like button or whatever you do.
Jingle that notification bell.
If you like my creepy face in the corner here with the dark,
I was gonna say, you look like you're into Blair Witch now.
I'm so scared.
I considered having like an extreme close up with like a runny nose and like being like, I don't know what's going on here, but I thought that'd be a little over the top. But now
you could just hold the baby up to the camera and get the same effect, probably. Although although it might be cute too. I don't know.
Yeah, wait. Are you implying that showing my baby would be like the equivalent of a horror movie?
If it's like super close in, I don't know if anybody looks cute when it's like that.
Oh, my babies do.
Mm-hmm.
Bring her in close enough so we can smell her. I love that baby smell.
I don't think my webcam transmits smells.
Not yet.
All right, what was that? Was that allowed to finish, or?
I'm almost done. You might as well.
Actually,
looking it down.
I got cut off before I could complete this, but I wanted to give a shout out to someone who I think watches. This is actually this stein, and I can't believe it took me this long to realize I should be using it, considering Andrew's been using this giant stein since the beginning. That was a groomsman gift from a certain. Let's just call him Dewey. I don't know if he necessarily wants us to throw out his full name out there, but thank you for the stein.
So 10 years ago, about thereabouts, you got the stein, and now you're using it.
Now I'm using it. I think I've used it once before, like probably like a month or two after. I like as a joke poured like a Yingling or something in there. I'm like, yeah, look at this. This is comically big. And then I'm like, you know what? That's silly, because I don't think it's dishwasher safe. So you got to be hand washed every time, and that's kind of a pain. Who has time for that?
So
not somebody with 3 kids, I can tell you that.
I was recently traveling, and while I was traveling, I bought myself a new Pilsner glass, and I'm probably not gonna be able to show that off. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll grab it for tomorrow because I think that might be the only time I could really use it. Maybe show off my Pilsner glass. But that one also is a hand wash only. And hand washing glasses is a pain. I hear you. So it's just got to be a special occasion. Like for, this.
I do
Yeah,
wash this in the dishwasher. I'm not sure if I should, because I'm not sure if that's gonna eventually rub off or not. But this was a
yeah.
gift from one of reverse the other way. It was one of the gifts, one of my housewarming gifts from one of my groomsmen.
If you look on the bottom of the glass, it probably has some washing instructions. If it doesn't, it's probably dishwasher safe.
Well, yeah, like I said, and the only thing I'm worried about is if the thing comes off, because eventually that's gonna if it's not etched into the glass, it's gonna come off. But yeah, Paul, now that you mention it, I have a couple of. They're probably the similar size to this though. I have a couple of this for being in weddings, and then I probably still have the Circus mug.
Well, that's plastic, isn't it?
No,
No,
that
circus one. You're not talking about Excalibur.
no, the Excalibur is also ceramic, but it's not see-through.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah. But the
I have
Circus
those on display.
is. I don't think it's as tall as your guys'. It might be wider though. I'm not sure.
I remember that trip, and I don't think I brought home any glassware or anything like that from that one.
You didn't bring
I
home
definitely
anything
did.
from Excalibur, man.
And I certainly didn't bring home any sexually transmitted diseases.
All right. I feel like on that note, we should probably do the thumbs up,
Talk
thumbs
about the
down,
beer.
but or talk about the beer.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and I can go first because I don't know, because I'm a bully like that. I kind of liked it. I don't know if it's something I'd drink that often, but the uniqueness was a big selling point to me. Like I said, I don't think I've had a beer like that before. And I was kind of shocked by the initial color and the initial smell. I was worried it would get old pretty quickly, like as I was drinking it. The oh, what's the word when it's fun because it's unique. Uh, this is what happens when you get old.
Novelty?
Novelty, thank you. I was afraid the novelty of it would wear off, and it didn't by the end, which was kind of a pleasant surprise. Um, I don't think this is telegraphing my vote necessarily, but my concern, my general thumbs up, thumbs down is would I order another one at a bar if I ordered it. I wouldn't have been, after the first beer, I wouldn't have been tired of this one. So the uniqueness was a big selling point, and I don't know if I drink it every day, but it didn't. It definitely didn't get old after the first one. So.
I want to point out two things about this, which is that typically when you malt the grain for longer periods of time and get that darker color, you're going to get more sweetness out of it. And that sweetness also means more sugar. It means that you get a higher alcohol content in your wort and therefore in your beer. This is, again, 4.8%. And as we're drinking it, it's got a lot of that smoky flavor to it, but it isn't sweet, right? I don't see a sweetness to it that I would expect to see from a beer of this color. And both of those are interesting to me. It is powerful in flavor, right?
I was just gonna say real quick, it's not sweet probably because they got the color via a different method than what you had just described, right?
Right. So they probably cooked it for longer and maybe burned some of the sugars instead of just letting them come out. And maybe that's why it has the lower alcohol content too. I don't know. I would have to really dig in deeper into the process through which they went malting here to see how it came out.
You were going to say something else, though. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm pretty much done with that. Those were the 2 points I really wanted to hammer home here, because I think that they're relevant to the discussion of the beer without necessarily tipping my hand one way or the other about how I feel about the beer.
Yeah, so I was pleasantly surprised, mostly because my only knowledge of smoked beers was the host of a local Maryland, not really local Maryland, a Maryland beer podcast called Uncapped. Pretty sure he was talking to one brewery, and he does not like smoked beers apparently. So that's my only knowledge. I was like, oh, I guess maybe smoked beers aren't great, because I think maybe the brewer didn't like him either. So I was pleasantly surprised by it, and it wasn't it's almost like what I wish most coffee beers were like.
Sure,
Like
absolutely.
coffee beers, like I want to like them because I do like coffee, but they wind up tasting almost more burned, I guess is the best description I can apply to them. Well, as this is actually burned, but doesn't taste burned. It has the nice smokiness to it. I don't know if it passes the I would drink it right away again, but yeah, it's definitely something to kind of that would be interesting to have on occasion.
I wonder if if the what is it, Maillard, Maillard, what
Maillard.
is the word I'm looking? Maillard effect is applicable here, where it's a whole thing where like when you burn or cook a certain thing at a certain temperature, it releases certain sugars and makes it taste good. Obviously I don't know exactly what I'm talking about, but I do wonder if uh, I wonder if that plays a role at all in the tastiness of these beers. But anyway, should we give it a thumbs up and thumbs down? All right, three, two, one. All right, Andrew, justify your wrong opinion.
I ultimately it comes down to the fact that if I'm going to drink something with this smoke flavor profile, I want it to be a Scotch. We've talked about how it's like a Scotch, and I don't see why I'd drink a beer like this when I can drink a Scotch and have my tonsils burned for that experience as well, which I would enjoy. It's not a bad beer, but like Paul said, I don't know that I want to order it again now. I'll drink another one eventually, probably. It's not like I disliked it, but it's not something I want again now, and I don't think I want it again for a couple of weeks at least.
Travis, tell him why he's wrong.
Because you can get, I don't know, you can drink it easier than the Scotch. I mean, I like Scotch, but like you said, you don't get your tonsils kicked in quite as badly, and some Scotch can be. I'm sure some smoked beers can also be very very smoky. Like I think this struck the right level of smokiness that I would look for. Yeah, in a Scotch as well. Though yeah, Scotch I might want a slightly more smoky. I can take that, but um, yeah, I just had a nice. It wasn't something I was going to down either. It felt like it did take me a little while. So at some point I was like, geez, there's still some left, but it wasn't like I was like forcing myself to drink it either. I did want to keep going back to it.
I'm not. I don't think I'm nearly as Scotch expert as you two are. I feel like when it comes to Scotch, I don't know if maybe this is just saying the same thing that you were saying, but differently. I don't know if I would taste the smokiness as much. When it comes to a beer, it's I feel like I can kind of savor it and sip it and kind of enjoy the flavors a little bit more than I do with the liquor. Um, like I said before, this is the first time I had any kind of smoked beer. This is almost entirely about on uniqueness, right? Like this is it's a flavor unlike any I've had before. And if I went to a bar and ordered it, I don't know if I would get another one, but I definitely would consider getting it the next time I came to that bar if they still had it, right? Like it's not something I necessarily want to have all night long through, two or three beers in a row. But if I came back like a week or two later, it might be the first beer I go to and just be like, you know what, I want to have that experience again because that was a different experience. So um, that kind of a minor exception to my general voting rule, but I liked it, and that's why I went with a thumbs up.
Yeah. Real quick, that said, I'm still going to be scared to go try other smoked beers just because I have a feeling they're going to be more on that burned style type side. I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't judge them before I've tried them.
Right. I mean, and just because the review said that I found said this was more on the nose and less in the taste, that other smoked beers would be stronger, doesn't mean that those reviewers are right. They said that this was going to be more on the nose and less on the tongue, and I disagree with that. Right. So other people have, everyone has a completely different flavor and nose profile for every beer that they experience. Just based on your own biochemistry.
And that's why I like something like this or being able to go and make a mixed 4 pack or something is so that you're not stuck with a 4 pack of beer and you're like, gee, I hate that. What do I do with the other 3 cans?
Give them to your friends.
Oh, I gave some. We just gave some beer away on Saturday. Apparently, it was a very thankful dad. He was like, "I'm putting up Christmas decorations with my kids. I'll be right over to get the beer."
Well, to your point a little bit, Travis. I mean, we've gone through how many like 18 beers so far
This was
previously
19.
to this.
Oh,
This is the
previous to
19th.
this 18. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was a tiny bit disappointed in terms of the variety of beers. Like it seems like there was a lot of like pilsners, lighter beers, and I'm like, okay, I had for whatever reason, I think I had this idea that the German beers were going to be like heavier and more distinct and more unique, and it's probably because I was thinking like the Martin
I was going to
style.
say you thought you pretty much you thought yeah, Oktoberfest in America is more Martzens and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. I thought it'd be like half, those and then half like Guinness style type beers. I don't know what I was expecting, but I was expecting, I guess, fewer pilsners and stuff like that. And so I think that probably played a role a little bit. I mean, this is definitely different. It's like the Zelda beer. I can't remember the name of it. The purple can, right? Like, I think I gave a thumbs up to that one too.
You gave a
And that
thumbs down to
was
that one.
I gave a thumbs down to that one.
Yep.
All right. Well, maybe I was wrong then. But even though I gave it a thumbs down, I did appreciate that it went out there, right?
Yes.
It was big and bold, and it tried something different, and that counts for a lot. And I think that I guess with this beer, I liked it a little bit more than the Zelda beer apparently, but it was the same kind of style, right? It went out there, tried something different, and I appreciate that, especially because when you have something like this advent calendar, you're not looking for like 24 different types of pilsners or something like that. You want to try something new and different that you haven't tried before, and so even if I hadn't enjoyed it that much and given it a thumbs down, I do appreciate something like this being included in the calendar.
It made sure we have a full experience, which is very, very good.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
know we're starting to run a little long here, but just to say, I think looking because they're all on the other, all the cans are on the side. I think maybe they kind of front loaded it with all those lighter beers. I think we're getting a run, maybe of darker beers. I don't know. I saw some of them as I was putting them in the fridge.
Oh, someone's snooping in the Christmas presents. It sounds like,
They got to be cold. I'm not gonna
or
drink these
or, or,
things
or in
warm.
your case, maybe it's your birthday presents. Who knows?
Ooh.
All right. Well, anyone else have anything to say? I think Travis was trying to wrap this up. So no, nothing. All right. Well, even a baby can't stop the discourse.